All right, welcome everyone to another top 10 most wanted from the Vintage Collection. If you don't know what we're doing, we are looking at the Star Wars Vintage Collection most wanted for the entire Star Wars saga. It's Martyn doing all the picking because I just pick astromech droids if I can. Not that there's enough probably from this film. If you didn't catch last week, we looked at The Phantom Menace, which means this week we're going into Attack of the Clones. Martyn, anything to add?
No, just a quick reminder that obviously, I'm a card collector. So while obviously I do look at the figure and the character, it's mainly the card back itself that I'm interested in seeing. So just bear that in mind with my choices.
Yep. And the only other rule is that we can't pick one that's already been produced in the vintage collection, even if the figure needs an update. Um, the other rule doesn't come into play until the original trilogy anyway, so we'll save that. Let's get going then, Martyn. Number 10 for Attack of the Clones.
Okay, number 10 is Elan Sleaze Bogano. Now, obviously, people who know the Attack of the Clones will know that's the guy who tries to sell Obi-Wan death sticks at the Outlander Club in the lower
That's the
depths of
guy.
Coruscant. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean he's an interesting looking character. I don't think, well, I know for a fact we haven't had him on TVC. I think we may have had him on another line, but he's not
Hmm.
a mass produced character that I've seen in many lines. So and I've tried to pick characters that I think, as I said earlier, will look good on a card back. And he'll be really good for the TVC. So Elan Sleaze Bogano.
Okay. A bit of a bit part player for me. I'm not sure. He's only in the film for a few seconds, isn't he? I think so.
I agree, but I think when you look at the original 96 Kenner cards and then the TVC cards that have followed suit,
That's true.
most characters, obviously you've got your big main characters, but a lot of the cards are made up by characters that are just in the background and don't say anything. So
Yeah. Mostly crazy aliens. Yep. Okay. So number 9 then. What have you got?
number 9, I've picked Senator Amidala in her Naboo outfit. That's the one with the rather fetching dress, if I do say so myself, that she's wearing where they're on the balcony and Anakin moves in for that smooth kiss.
Hmm.
I bought some artwork recently of her in that outfit, and I have to say, I've kind of fell in love with it a little bit. So it's kind of a choice for me there, really, more than anything else. But yeah, so number 9, Senator Amidala in her Naboo outfit.
Fair enough. Fair enough. That one's for you.
Move along,
Um,
move along.
moving on to number 8 very swiftly.
Okay, number 8, it's WA7, and WA7 is the droid who's the server at Dexter Jettster's diner. She
That's right. Yeah.
We've spoken about her before, and she has wheel. She moves around with a wheel at the base
Mm.
of her. And we were saying, how would you do a figure? But you'd have to have
So,
one of those stands, I think, in the bubble that enabled her to sort of stand upright,
yeah.
and you just clip it to the back of her. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting looking
It,
droid. Does remind me of a couple of other droids we've seen outside of Star Wars canon. I think Star Tours, there's a droid that looks a little bit like her as well.
mm,
The ride at Hollywood Studios, but yeah, I wanted to pick a droid, and WA7 is the one I went for.
interesting. Yeah. I mean, it has been made before, so that, the
Mm,
figure is available. So they know what to do.
yeah.
Okay. Number 7.
Okay, I have gone number 7 for Wat Tambor, who
Another
is
droid?
no, well, he's not really a droid. I mean, I don't
No.
think he's. I think he's kind of half and half, isn't he? He's the
Some sort
Techno
of
Union
cyborg
Army.
type.
Yeah, kind of cyborgish. Yeah. I mean, he has that sort of device on the side of his neck, which he has to sort of play around with to get
Mm,
his speech right when he's talking to Count Dooku in Attack of the Clones. Um,
got you.
he's, a-
Yeah.
he's, he's he's a good-looking character. Again, I mentioned in the last episode I'd like to see all of the Jedi Council available on TVC. Well, just as a counterpoint, I would also like to see all the Separatist leaders um,
Mm.
on a vintage card as well. So obviously we'd need Wat Tambor in there. And I think he'd make an interesting card back and figure. So yeah, Wat Tambor number 7.
Fair enough. Yeah. Moving on then. Number 6.
And I've for number 6, I've gone for another Jedi Council member, one that's never been released in the vintage collection, Master Plo Koon. So, I
That
mean,
surprises me.
yeah, it surprises me. I mean, we said that in the last episode. There's so many Jedi Council members that haven't been produced yet
Yeah, yeah,
in the vintage collection, and he's a glaring miss, really, isn't he? I mean, he's one of the
mm,
big ones. So, and I think again, excellent figure to make for the vintage collection. You know, if they
yeah,
did a brand new sculpt for him, and obviously, you know, we've got to know his character a lot better in the Clone Wars, so we could have it on a Clone
again,
Wars
yeah,
card if we couldn't get it on
yeah,
Attack of the Clones. So yeah,
yeah,
I'd love them to make a Plo Koon.
definitely. Accompanied by quite a cool looking little astromech droid as well. Yeah, one for me, maybe. Yeah, so that's your first 5 picks. Let us know down below what you think of that, and obviously, what your top choice would be. Now, this is the top 5, the business end. Give us number 5, Martyn.
Okay, number 5, I've gone for another Padme Amidala figure, but this time it's the Geonosis outfit, the one obviously where she's fighting in the arena, and the 3 monsters, the Reek, the
Yep.
Nexu, and I can't remember the third one off the top of my head right now. They're attacking Obi-Wan, her, and Anakin. Now we could go for the ripped shirt version, or we could go for prior to the ripped shirt version. So you
Yeah.
know, I'm happy either way. To be honest with you, you know, it's an action figure at the
Yeah.
end of the day. But you know, if we're talking image, I think I'd probably go for the ripped shirt option. But that's just me. Um,
Yep. Well, it's
um,
an iconic scene, an iconic outfit.
mm.
It has to be made, surely. Surely.
Definitely. And
Yeah.
it's another Padme, iconic outfit that's never been made. It's crazy, isn't it?
She has so many of them, though, doesn't she?
True, true,
So,
true.
yeah. Okay, moving on. Number 4.
Okay, number 4. Once again, I've gone for another separatist leader, and it's Poggle the Lesser, the leader of the Genosians.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, obviously, you know, he's got his rather large walking stick, sort of bug-like creature.
Yep.
You know, he's quite a pivotal character, I suppose, or he's a big character in the movie. I mean, he doesn't have a lot to do, I suppose, but you know,
Yeah.
he's there at the front, you know, with all the leaders, and so again, I think, you know, if you wanted to, you know, make that separatist leader council like you have in reference to the Jedi Council, you need
Mm.
Poggle the Lesser. So, and I think he's a must for me in the vintage collection.
Fair enough. Yeah. Do they actually have any Geonosians in the vintage collection?
No, none
No, I
at
was
all.
just thinking that.
Yep, yep. It's interesting, isn't it? As we're going through this, we're actually starting to realise the number of characters and species in general that they don't actually have
Yeah.
yet. So, and we're
Yeah.
nearly up to 400 figures, aren't we? So,
That's it. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Right. Number 3.
Number 3, and another separatist leader. I've gone for San Hill, who's the head of the banking clan. Now, San Hill is a moon, and he's of the same species as Darth Plagueis. So, you know, we've had a moon figure before. I'm sure we've had San Hill before in another line, but we need him for the vintage collection. I'd love to get him for the vintage collection, and if they
Mm.
made him for the vintage collection, they'd have the sculpt available to make Darth Plagueis in the future, and that's one I would love to
That's,
see.
I see where
But
you're
that's
going with this. Yeah.
that's for a later episode, shall we say?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Brilliant. Number 2 then.
Number 2, my favorite member of the Jedi Council. Absolutely love this character. Love the species. It is Shakti. I'm absolutely amazed that this character hasn't been made yet in the vintage collection. She's obviously the same species as Ahsoka. So I mean, I would love to see her in the vintage collection. Just quickly on a tangent, we spoke to Steve Evans, didn't we, when we were at the Fording Bridge
Mm.
Farthest From convention, and I
Yep.
mentioned to him that we need a Shakti. So hopefully he listened. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to see a Shakti.
Who knows? Who
I
knows?
mean, this she was tough to put at number 2 because I
I
would
was
have put
going to
her at
say,
number
yeah.
1. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you were so desperate to get a Shakti, how desperate must he have been for number one, which is coming up next? Come on,
Okay, number one.
let us have it.
It's going to be a shocker. It is Massamida, who is sort of the right-hand man to Chancellor Palpatine. Now, I can't remember off the top of my head what species he is. Someone in the comments can let me know. But
Yeah,
he's such a great-looking character. I think when we did our prequel 96 series, we absolutely waxed lyrical
we
about
both
the
have.
character design. I've always, every time I see him on screen, I'm captivated by his look and he looks like a Star Wars alien, doesn't he? He looks
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean, he's one I've always wanted. Not even necessarily in the vintage collection, but I managed to pick him up in the Revenge of the Sith line, and I love that figure. And that figure's 20 years old now. So if they could update that figure and bring him out on a vintage collection card, wow. I mean, I'd probably buy one of those to
yeah.
open. That's how much I would
Oh
love
no.
to get. Yeah. And this is
That's,
me talking. So yeah,
yeah,
I would love to get a Massamida figure.
yeah. Well, there you go. That's Martyn's top 10 most wanted for Attack of the Clones. But as a bonus, let's find out what vehicle you would like from that film.
Right, this was tough. I looked to see what they'd released in Attack of the Clones on the vintage collection already, and they haven't actually released all that many. And it was a tough choice, but there was only really one that sort of like I'd love to see it. I don't know how they do it, mind, but I would love to see Count Dooku's solar sail ship, the one that you see at the
Right.
end that he escapes Geonosis on, and it has that big solar sail that comes out of the end of it. Do you remember
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
I'm really trying to rack my brains to figure out which one that is, but I cannot think of it.
I'm sure there's a picture of it up on
I'll put it
screen
in
as
the
we
edit.
speak.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
That's
mean, I
really
don't know how they would design the toy to work, but I'd love to see that. And perhaps as a bonus, you could get his little pilot droid that came with it on a card back. Just throwing that out there as an extra
yeah.
one that you weren't expecting.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd love to see the solar
Has to be done.
sail. Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, that's it. Let us know in the comments what you thought of Martyn's list, what was missing from Martyn's list, and what is your most wanted, maybe. And drop a like on the video, of course. Make sure you subscribe. Next week, we will go into Revenge of the Sith. See you later.